So Tower of God, after last week's episode, felt like it was so back. Back in the way that it was more on track, there's more of a focus, it was hitting things that I think a lot of us came off of Season 1 wanting to see more of, and I'm really happy to say that this latest episode is doing exactly that. On paper, a lot of what we saw is very similar to like the first 4 episodes, give or take, especially with character interactions. But it does feel a lot more focused, and they're dropping the hints. They're dropping stuff surrounding Bam and his friends that make you way more invested, because as much as you may like some of the new characters that we got on screen right now, it's not to the same connection that we had from Season 1. And the idea of how they end this episode with, I don't know what the hell this man is supposed to be, but it seems like the equivalent of discovering a raid boss when you're still, maybe a little under-leveled for it. This feels like something you need the whole goddamn army for, and we got a handful of people. The thing is Bam, aka Viola, doesn't really have the luxury of just saying, I'll take the test again, because we get a little information about, what happened after the big old push in Season 1, and it's, spicy. So, Bam, not surprised. I was disappointed, but I'm not surprised that he was like, hey, I'm not gonna blame Rachel, because that's who Bam is, let's be 100%. And this person's like, okay. Throws the friend sheet. I'ma go kill him. And I'm like, oh shit. So the fact that for every time he fails the test, a friend dies. So there's no luxury of mistakes. If anyone in this current group was to pose a threat and have a chance at making him fail, I'm pretty sure he would cut a head off. Because there's no room for error, which means he has no choice but to fight the monstrosity in front of him. And the thing about it is we actually don't know his strength at this point. We've seen some crazy things, but we can't actually say for sure how strong he is in the context of the entire world. So as far as we know, this is a hopeless situation, but Jesus, man, what a great episode of Tower of God. Of course, to do a full live reactions over on Patreon, if you want to see my full and good thought to any of these episodes, it's going to be over there exclusively. So, the interesting thing about talking about Tower of God is it's actually very, very similar to talking about Classroom of the Elite, and I don't think a lot of people realize. For those who don't know, or maybe didn't follow Classroom of the Elite, Classroom of the Elite has one of probably the most criticized anime adaptations I've ever experienced. Yet anytime Classroom of the Elite is around, it's one of the most discussed and popular anime of the season. It's one of those things that people constantly say is a butchered anime adaptation or this or that in the third. Yet, on one third, you have anime-only fans just enjoying it. On one third, you have source readers who are just happy it exists, and then the other third is just completely pissed off energy. And that honestly reminds me of what is happening with Season 2 of Tower of God. Where it's just like, for as criticized and, daggers thrown at this season as I've seen, from new art style to, oh, they really rushed. Like, that's something that I'm seeing a lot of, that, we shouldn't even be at this point until, like, episode 9 or 12 if we were really properly adapting. It's literally the same criticisms I'm seeing from Classroom of the Elite. In this case, I definitely have my own issues. Not to the point that it ruins the show, but it's fascinating to see a show like this exist, because usually with how much criticisms I'm seeing for a show like Tower of God Season 2, it would be one of the least talked about seasons of the season. But, goddamn, interesting experience to say the least. Now, best part was definitely the reveal, right? Both with the flashback of the friend list, as well as, Bam having to be him. And this is actually the first episode that we actually had the name drop Bam. Now, okay, there's going to be at least one person who's probably going to go online and be like, bro, did you see that Bam name drop? I had no idea. And bless their heart, that's all I can say. But it was nice to properly get someone call him that name. But it's interesting because, when you really take a step back and reevaluate the initial interaction that, Viola ended up having when we were initially climbing the tower and we just met Wangnan and they were trying to build their little party and he was ready to cut heads off. With the drop of information they gave in this episode at the end, it really repaints that whole picture of why there was such that aggression of, I will climb the tower, no one will stand in my way, because there's literally no room for error. But what I really appreciate the most about this episode is, like I said at the start of the video, On paper, the first 4 episodes feel very similar to what this episode was for the most part. A lot of just silly interactions. I mean, we literally ended the last episode with basically the conversation being, if you don't want us to hang out with a terrorist, get better at cooking. Because that's basically what they said to those girls, saying, hey, you know, he cooks better than you, so deal with it. And it's hilarious. But there's something better, because now that, you know, it feels like we're past the introduction stage, and while I have my issues with it feeling like we really didn't get to know them that well, and it just kind of made us feel like, oh, Wagner's kind of acting like he's known all these characters for way longer than he has, and then in return, the anime fandom's supposed to feel the same way. Of course, I have my issues feeling like I didn't get to grow with them the same way I got to grow with, say, the Season 1 cast at an appropriate pace. At the same time, now that we're over that hump of introduction, it just feels like, okay, I accept what they are here, and in return, they actually are a lot more fun dealing with in terms of the current situations. And overall, it was actually kind of nice because, like, there's obviously a lot of tension, a lot of hostility, and a lot of people don't know the full pictures of what's going on. But a character like Wagner understanding that, like, hey, I thought you were a bad guy, but you're actually pretty good. You're literally just trying to protect your friend. Because you can kind of tell that, like, put into his shoes, you feel like Wagner would probably be doing the same thing. And based on the poster image, I assume these two are going to be homies at some point. And it feels like we've more or less gotten to that point rather quickly, which is what I appreciate. Because from the very beginning of the show, I literally was saying that Wagner could be the MC. Like, there was a lot of potential there. So having the two best characters more or less be on the same wavelength means good things for the future of this show. I definitely don't think there's anything wrong criticizing this season. I definitely have had my issues with it. But I also think it's important to recognize when the show's really, really good for you, and the past 2 episodes have been very, very good for me. Honestly, I don't even know if I want to put money if we can win this fight, because in terms of power levels, in terms of who's actually certain strength, like, one, we haven't actually seen Bam's full training between seasons 1 and 2, so we don't actually know what he's fully capable of. We only have had small tastes over the episodes. We don't know how strong this person is. I mean, glowing red eyes, that kind of gives me the he's him energy. So anything could happen, but all we know is there's no room for error, and when you fail, death happens, and that's pretty spicy. Of course, those are my feelings. Let me know your thoughts and feelings, though, down below. If you're anime original, how are you feeling about the season now that we're at roughly the midway point of the first core? And for source readers, how are you feeling? I know there's been a lot of criticism, but the past couple of episodes, feeling a little more on track? Let me know down below. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, of course, ring that bell, and like I mentioned, full live reactions over on Patreon. And hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. Alright, so today we got AI740, Chris He, Gun Bunny, Edwin, Dan Yang, True Obelisk, and we also have Sean. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care, and you all have a good one.